Hello, everybody. This is Mike from Nymphs, Knots, and Nonsense, and today I want to take you through fly tying tools. There are probably about 5 million tools that are out there on the market that you can buy. I know because I probably bought about half of them. They're a lot. I've acquired, aggregated, even pack ratted, tons of tying tools. And I'm going to take you through the ones that I need, the ones that are nice to have, and then the ones that fit into specific niches. The first thing we want to go over is scissors. And I have a huge collection of scissors that I've gotten over the years. You might go on a trip, realize that you need a pair of scissors because, suddenly you realize you're tying size 32 midges. And so you need a pair of scissors that can actually cut all of that stuff. How many do I have? This was just in my bag. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 different pairs of scissors. Some are good, some are bad, some expensive, some are expensive, some are cheap. You need probably 2 pairs of scissors. Okay. The first pair is a pair that is good for cutting midges and cutting itty bitty little things. You'll know these because when you buy them at the store, they'll say midge scissors. But really what you're looking for, and you can see these two here. So this one is a pair of midge scissors. You see how narrow and small that those blades are, so that way they can fit right into where you need to go to cut stuff. And then you need 1 pair of general purpose scissors. Typically, these have a little serration on one of the blades in order to hold the material to get just that littlest bite on them so that you can actually cut stuff. Other than that, scissors are scissors, right? The best scissors that are out there that are expensive are the ones that will keep their edge through multiple and multiple uses. The other cheaper ones, the metal is a little bit softer, and so they'll dull up faster, and you'll find yourself needing to buy a new pair of scissors or trying to figure out how to sharpen those scissors. Pro tip, it's really hard to sharpen fly tying scissors because the blades are so small. The next thing that you'll need is a pair of wire cutters. Why? Because you don't cut your wire with your scissors. Don't do it. Get a special pair of cutters. These are electricians diagonal cutters. You could also use, maybe if you have a pair of multi-pliers. They've got a little wire cutter that's there. But this one definitely is better. You could get a pair of Needlenose pliers. They would work really well if they have a cutter involved. But use specific cutters for wire. No matter how big, no matter how small, wire will mess up your scissors. I don't care how good they are. And if they're better scissors, they just turn into a very expensive paperweight. Also, I just mentioned this, but a pair of multi-pliers. I take these just live in my bag. I take them everywhere. These are from SOG or SOG. They've got wire cutters. They've got a needle nose pliers thing going on. They've got a couple screwdriver bits down here. They've got a knife. I use that for a bunch of different things. My most common usage of this is I will crimp the end of wire before I tie it into my fly in order to add little bumps to the wire so that when I tie it in, I can't pull the wire out at the end of the fly. It just makes for a more durable fly and solves you having a poof, I pulled my wire out accident later on when you're tying the fly. You need bobbins. Bobbins. I have probably 8 bobbins. There are a handful of these that I like, that I really use a lot. I've got the Rake bobbin from a company called Rake. Anyway, it's the Rake bobbin, Rite. These things are great. I've got this one is a Magnum with the end you can use as a half hitch tool. I never use it for that, but I do use it for my heavier flies, heavier thread. The regular Rake bobbin, I use that for all of my 70 denier threads. So smaller size flies. And I have a couple of the old school, the two legs that just clamp over the top of the spool, with a ceramic insert in there in order to not cut the fly or cut the line accidentally or cut your thread accidentally. And so I still have a bunch of these things, even though I don't use them as much. I prefer to use right bobbins. I will build a completely different video about using bobbins, how to set the tension, how to actually use them in the right way. There's no real right way, but how to use them and get the most value out of that bobbin. The next thing that I use, and I use a lot, is a bodkin. Bodkin is a fancy word. It means a pokey needle thing. And what you use these for, you use them to pull feathers out when they get trapped. You use it to add head cement to your fly. There are a bunch of different uses that you can have for these. These are invaluable. I usually have two of them sitting on my bench. Why? Because you can never find the one that you need, and I use these a lot. The next thing is hackle pliers. There are many different versions of hackle pliers. Some of them are this little clamp thing that electricians use. That works. There are these things which are just a wrap around. They've got a little rubber pad here and a metal pad that trap your material. This one has two, same kind of concept, but it's on a handle with a swivel, so you can wrap around in a circle around your fly. Doesn't really overly matter what type of hackle pliers you get. You need a pair of hackle pliers. I don't use these as often because I have evolved other techniques. Rotary vices make some of that moot. I also will use my finger to hold material as I'm wrapping. So I've got specific techniques. We'll go over those in a later video. But when I do have material and you get down to the last little stubby bit of that material, hackle pliers become incredibly important because with wire, with feathers, you can't have enough grip in your fingers to hold it. So you need a tool. The next tool is a dubbing teaser, and I have a couple of these in different types. This isn't technically a dubbing teaser, but it's used for dubbing, and so we'll get there. This one looks like a bore brush for a rifle. I always laugh. It looks like an M16 bore brush, something I'm intimately familiar with. I've spent lots of hours scrubbing away at the inner pieces of an M16 with one of these. But it has this wire. It's kind of like a wire brush. This one, you can't even really see it, but it's a little needle, and the needle has little abrasions that are rubbed into it. So if you feel it, it will actually catch your skin. And so you use this for really, really, really small flies. And then this one is it's a bodkin-ish. It's like a sewing needle, and it's got a hole in it. You use that to split thread to make a dubbing loop. Okay. Honestly, my micro dubbing teaser here, I very rarely use it. It has to be a really, really small fly, and I have to want to bugify that fly. Most of the time, I'm using the bore brush, and I'm just going touch, 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 and it pulls out some material, and that's all that I need. And the last ultimately necessary tool that I need for fly tying is glasses. These ones are clicks, so they just have a magnet in the center, so you can pull them out, let them hang on your neck. I use this all the time when I'm teaching people. I can let my glasses hang, and then if I need to put them on, I just flip them up, clip them together, and I can see what I'm doing. I made an entirely different video. This video itself is in a playlist about learning how to tie flies. There's a specific dedicated video about glasses, how to find glasses, how to save money on glasses, and why you actually need glasses. The next category is things that are a nice to have. So they come in handy from time to time. You might use them a little bit less than the necessary tools, but they're not a niche player like the last category. The first tool in this category is a hair stacker. This one in particular came from Stonefly, It is usually a tube inside of some kind of a tube. You put hair in here, like deer hair, elk hair. You put it tip down, then you bang it on a table. It lines up the tips. And then with this one, it's cool. You have a swing out. You just swing it out, grab the material, and then you can tie it in as a tail, as wings, usually as wings. You can do whatever you need to do with it. But I don't use these on every fly. Fact, most of the flies I tie are the same, like half dozen still water nymphs that I tie like continuously because I go out and burn them up on the pond. If you're tying a lot of dries, these things are indispensable. The next tool is going to be a comb of some kind. And I have a couple of these. I call these the Barbie combs because they're about that size. This one is a little bit smaller. This one's a little bit bigger. But anytime you're working with especially deer hair, elk hair, moose hair, all of that stuff, having a comb comes in handy because most animals have a big bushy hair and then they have a small little fuzz underneath of it. That fuzz acts as insulation. It's called the underhairs. The big hairs are what we call the guard hair or the main hair, and that's usually what you're tying with. It's incredibly rare that you want to use the underfur because it adds bulk to your wings, bulk to your tails without actually being part of the fly. Another nice to have tool is a dubbing twister. This one's a little bit of a turbo twister. It's got two little tongs. You make a loop with your tying thread. Both of the hooks sit there, and then you spin it after you've added dubbing to it, and it makes a nice buggy looking chenille with that thread at the core of it. So these are nice to have, but there are other ways that you can use dubbing, such as making a dubbing loop. This one is a Swiss CDC one. This has a little bit of a learning curve to it, but you can use this, especially if you're making dubbing loops using Swiss CDC. But they function relatively similar. Um, the reason that I don't use these a lot, but they're nice to have, is that there are two other techniques for adding dubbing to a hook. I have a video on 3.5 methods of using dubbing. Using a dubbing loop is just one of the 3.5. Go check out that video. The last tool that I have, it isn't even really a tool. It's kind of a material, and that is wax. So this is a tube of dubbing wax. I got it from Orvis. I've had this thing, I don't know, 25 years. I don't use a lot of wax. You use the wax, you put it on your thread, then you add the dubbing, and it helps the dubbing to stick to it. I don't use that too much because I haven't had problems making dubbing loops and getting the material to stay. That's just me. For other people, they feel like they need wax because they just don't have enough oil in their fingers or in their skin to make that dubbing stick to the line, so they'll use the wax. And that's it for the nice to have items. The last category is the niche players. And I have these things, I will use them. They're actually really good tools. I just find that I don't end up using them as much for various reasons, and I'll explain why here in a second. The first item on this list is my Swiss clamps. Now, these are fantastically good. I love these things, but they're incredibly niche. And what they're used for is you take feathers, you clamp them, you make all the strands go in one direction, and there's a little wedge that you can shove them into. And then you grab this and you put it inside of a dubbing loop, and then you cut the core of the feather, release the clamp, and then use a dubbing twister to twist that. And that's how you make your own hackle. It's really made for CDC, so you can take a CDC feather, which is cul de canard, fancy French word for duck's butt feathers. If you say it in French, it makes it sound that much better. And you make the CDC and you wrap it around the fly as a hackle, or even as a collar, like a CDC collar on a fly, especially for Euro nymphs or European style nymphs. They're great. I don't use that CDC technique. I want to do a lot more of it, but for the time being, I'm putting these as niche players. Another niche player is this thing. This is funny. It's a piece of wire with a little bead on it. What this is, it is a bobbin threader. So you take the wire piece, you shove it into the bobbin from the end, you put the thread through the wire loop there, and you pull it out and it pulls the thread out. This is a niche player because it's incredibly rare where I need to use a bobbin threader. I've been doing this long enough, I can just cut a nice clean end on my thread, shove it through the bobbin, through the end of the bobbin next to the spool, and then just suck it up with my mouth and pull that thread all the way through. That's how I was taught it millions of years ago. That's how I still do it. Sometimes I amaze people. They're like, oh, how do you do that? Or you can make one out of monofilament. So take a small to medium sized monofilament, bend it over, tie a knot in it, squish the end of it so that it's flat, and then you can use that as a bobbin threader. One more tool is this guy. This guy is a dubbing rake, and it's cool little tool. But what you use it for is where you get a rabbit mask or some kind of animal. It could be a rabbit, it could be a squirrel, and you have an entire hide of it. You actually take the rake and you'll see it's got little serrations on it. But you can use that to scrape the hair off of the leather hide in order to make dubbing. Great tool. A lot of times nowadays, people are buying dubbing in bags. They're not actually scraping their hides. I do have a couple of hides. I scrape them. I have a project I'm going to do teaching here later over the winter where we're going to make our own dubbing using different colors. And so we'll be scraping it with the rake, but very much a niche player. Another tool that I have is this. This is a gauge. So you'll see here I've got hooks, and I've got, there's a little post here. So you see, I'll give you in 3D. There's a little post here, and then there are circles around it. What this is for is the pictures of hooks are so you can gauge your hooks to see what size is the hook, how big is the hook based on the hook bend. And then the little post that's there is there to tell you how big is your hackle and what size of hook will that hackle work with. Now, the reason that this is a niche player, I don't really use it that much, is because, number one, I get hooks that are in a bag, they have a label. I don't have hooks that are just sitting around loose where I need to gauge them all the time. The second one is that where you are using the hackle gauge, you can actually take the hook, wrap hackle around the hook, and compare it to how close it comes to the bottom part of the hook, or where the barb is at, or where the point is at. And if you know how to actually use the hook as a gauge, then you don't need a separate gauge for that. One more tool that is a niche player is these pair of tweezers. Honestly, I've got these. They sit on my bench. I haven't used them a lot in years and years and years. The reason why is most of the functions that I do, so for instance, pulling fiber, freeing trapped fibers from, say, a hackle or hair, I just use a bodkin. I use that big old needle, stick it in there, and use it exactly the same way. So I haven't really had to use my tweezers, but I still have them. I still keep them on my bench. And the last tool, these are great tools. It's a spool keeper. It's a little eyelet with a rubber band attached to it, or an elastic band attached to it. And what you do is you take, see here, this is a fine, super fine wire, and you push the material through the eyelet and then wrap it around the spool, and it keeps your wire from just going poof and falling off the spool. I love these things, but they're kind of niche. Okay? They work really well if you've got a lot of spools. Most spools come with a little cap here, and you can just jam the material underneath that. That's what most people do. I got spoiled. I saw these in a store and said, hey, let me give them a try. I absolutely love them. Now I own like 20 of them, and I put them on all my spools. But something maybe give it a try, see if it works for you. I could very much see that these don't work for some people and other people would absolutely love them. Give them a try, see if you like it. If you like it, get more and use them. And that's it for tools. Hopefully you like my descriptions. Hopefully you didn't find me too dorky, or if you did, don't tell me about it in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you got something out of it. This is part of a series on beginning fly tying. Check out the playlist. I'll put it here. And thank you, and I will see you in the next video.